Good morning, everyone. Last fall, I had the ability to visit for the second time in my life the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. And at that time, the museum was actually putting on a particular exhibit that was called Americans in the Holocaust. And one thing that really stood out to me was the story of Henry Morgenthau, who was the lone Jewish member of FDR's cabinet. And he ended up being an incredible force for good inside of the government. As a single man, he was able to have the ear of FDR, and he was able to actually convince FDR to set up the War Refugee Board. That War Refugee Board resulted in the resettlement of more than 100,000 Jewish refugees who might have otherwise have ended up in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. That story stood out to me because it's incredibly poignant that one man was able to effectuate an entire policy change. But as the entire exhibit, Americans in the Holocaust, attested to, it wasn't just one man who generated that policy and generated that movement. In fact, it was an entire slew of various stakeholders from civil society who had been absolutely key to making sure that individuals were actually protected during that horrific time. There were examples of journalists, for example, who were covering Kristallnacht and the early reporting of the concentration camps there. There were student groups who were actively advocating against Nazi Germany and for the Jewish people. And of course, there were individuals who helped the Jewish people once they were resettled in the US. All of the individuals in these civil society groups made the little successes like the War Refugee Board a reality, and actually made them quite big successes. I think people always use the phrase that it takes a village to raise a child, but I think it takes a village in order to promote religious freedom and to promote human rights. And I think nothing is clearer than that than what we're about to hear from all of our panelists here today, who will talk about the importance of civil society. I'm Olivia Enos from the Heritage Foundation. I work in the Asian Studies Center there, where I focus primarily on human rights issues. And I'm really honored today to be hosting the civil society panel, which will talk about how the role that civil society plays in advancing religious freedom for all. As a member of civil society myself, I can't help but think that it is in large part due to the robust engagement of civil society that religious freedom is such a priority right now. For example, of course, we have Greg Mitchell here. I'm not sure if he's in the room, but he runs the International Religious Freedom Roundtable that in many ways was the precursor to Ambassador Brownback's incredibly transparent decision to, on a weekly or semi-weekly basis, meet with members of civil society. And of course, it is civil society who feature the voices of individuals who have survived untold tales of persecution, including places like the National Endowment for Democracy, or even China Aid, and even the Heritage Foundation. And of course, the origins of the International Religious Freedom Act are, in large part, find their beginnings in civil society activism and a continued push for government action. Before I introduce the panelists, I want to quickly say that I think this panel really lends itself to strong audience participation. And the speakers, I've instructed them very clearly, will speak for 7 to 10 minutes or so, and we're gonna stick really, really tight to that. I'm gonna be a real stickler with the timer. I'll be standing over here with my phone and being like, time's up. And the main reason I want to do this is because I really want to prioritize Q&A, because I think that most people here, if they're not members of parliament or former members of parliament, are members of civil society. And so I'm hoping we can really have a robust discussion. So with that in mind, I was hoping that as you guys listen to the various panelists, that you could be thinking about questions that are relevant to everybody in the audience, so that as the motto for the entire conference is, we can rise to the challenge and really think about what are the next steps that we can be taking, whether it's in the next couple of months or maybe over the next couple of years, so that we can really garner a lot of traction from this conference. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panelists. Our first speaker will be Nassim Malik. Mr. Malik is a human rights activist, a veteran Swedish national and local politician. Currently, he is the member of the City Council Kalmar and president of the International Social Democrats Wing Kalmar. He has worked for more than 10 years with the Swedish Immigration Board, and in Sweden he is a famous human rights activist known for his volunteer efforts. He has an incredibly illustrious background, which I would strongly encourage you all to read, but I'm going to leave it at that so we can keep moving forward with all of our various other panelists. So the second speaker will be Mr. Johnson Michael, who lives in Pakistan. After he completed his studies, he became a teacher at St. Patrick's School in Karachi. In 1990, he was elected as a parliamentarian in the Punjab province of Pakistan, and from 1990 to 1999, he served as a member of parliament. He is known as a strong advocate for religious freedom and belief inside of his community. And then we will next have Ms. Umida Bishwakarma, who is the Honorable Umida Bishwakarma, who represents Province Number 1 in the Eastern region of Nepal. She serves as the committee member and coordinator for the IPFORB Nepal chapter, and she is one of the proportionate representatives for the Dalit women to the provincial parliament. She has been a key activist toward freedom of religion or belief. Next, we will have Mr. Mukunda Kumar Sharma. He is a pastor and he's the executive secretary to Nepal Christian Society. He is the founder and chairperson of Transformation Nepal, chairperson to iTeam, secretary of Gospel Recording Nepal, secretary of Safe Family-Based NGOs. There are many things listed here. You have an incredibly illustrious resume. In addition to this, he's the senior pastor of Bethel AG Church at Bhaktapur, Nepal. He received his master's degree in development studies and a master's degree in theology, in addition to his bachelor's in business administration. And then our last but not least, our final speaker is Ms. Ji Hyuna. She escaped North Korea in 1998, and she was soon arrested in China when she was repatriated to North Korea. In 1999, she escaped again and was arrested by the Chinese authorities. And then in October 2002, she escaped North Korea for the fourth time and finally was able to resettle to freedom in South Korea. Since her arrival in South Korea in 2002, she's published 2 books, including 1,000 Miles for Freedom, as well as The Last Gift. And in 2018, she was commissioned as a missionary to North Korea. She also attended the first ever ministerial to advance religious freedom, representing victims of the North Korean regime. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Malik.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I start with the name of Allah, God, Lord, merciful and graceful. I have started this with this verse because if I say these words in Pakistan, then it's a blasphemy. I can be arrested for 3 years if I say that I start with the name of Allah. Thank Bob that and all the co-sponsors that I got this opportunity to be here and participate in this forum. My subject is a role of civil society in freedom of religion. You are all sitting here, or distinguished guests, you are human rights advocates, activists, and members of the civil society. So it's nothing special I have to tell you, but it is just the topic I got that want to elaborate a little more what is needed, Civil society is the aggregate of non-governmental organizations and institutions that manifest interests and will of citizens. Civil society includes the family and private sphere, referred to as third sector of society. Distinct from government and business, these organizations are supposed to be apolitical, focusing on specific goals and objectives set out by them, like education, alleviation of poverty, gender equality, etc. Religious freedom is yet another important subject for which various organizations work nationally and internationally. Many of us sitting here, we have heard yesterday from many of our friends, and today also, what is freedom of religion, freedom of expression. I am one of them as a victim of that. You have seen the video on 28th May 2010, 96 Ahmadis was martyred in 2 mosques in 4 hours. 16 of them was my close relatives. So I know what the freedom of religion and expression is. Civil society organizations have an essential role as watchdogs of governmental organizations, institutions. They follow the political process alertly and interfere where needed. This is how they help ensure that defects are revealed, but while it is necessary to point out problems, solutions are needed to civil society as a silent majority. Majority of citizens, particularly in third world countries, don't vote, and only a few of them form part of any of the organization known to be representing citizens. Governments cannot be trusted to provide objective, independent evaluation of themselves or other governments when it comes to human rights violation. This is why the role of independent civil society is essential. In the United Nations system, dictatorial states are increasingly making it difficult for outspoken independent groups to gain consultative status in ECOSOC and to participate in UN bodies. These same governments engage politically controlled NGOs to defend them before the Human Rights Council. States bring government-organized NGOs to masquerade as independent civil society organizations that defend policies that violate human rights. Civil society can be understood as the third sector of society distinct from government and business and including the family and private sphere. By others, civil society is used in the sense of to aggregate of non-governmental organizations and institutions that manifest interest and will of citizens or individuals and organizations in a society which are independent of governments. As comprehensively defined by the World Bank, civil society is the wide array of non-governmental and not-for-profit organizations that have a presence in public life, expressing the interests and values of their members or others based on ethical, cultural, political, scientific, religious, and philosophic considerations, reflecting in breadth of participants. Civil societies are enlivened by community groups, non-governmental organizations, labor unions, indigenous groups, charitable organizations, faith-based organizations, professional associations, and foundations. Religious freedom, the definition is freedom of religion is a principle that supports the freedom of an individual or community, in public or private, to manifest religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. It also includes the freedom of change one religion or belief. It is also true that the preservation of religious freedom depends upon public understanding of and support for the vital freedom, which in turn depends upon the value of public attaches to the teaching of right and wrong in churches, synagogues, and mosques. All should understand that it is sincere faith in God, however defined, that translate religious teachings into the moral behavior that benefits a nation. Moreover, this impact is magnified by the social intersection that occurs within religious organization, it follows that religions that teach right and wrong and the organization through which they work make a unique and indispensable contribution to society and should therefore have special legal protections. Religious teachings and the religiously motivated actions of believers are valuable of society and deserving of special legal protections. This of course rejects the assumption of some secularists that religion is mostly a matter of history that has minimal significance in modern times. Far from relics of the past, religious principles and religious believers are a vital present and future force. Everywhere, challenges to religious freedom addresses at the Argentina Council of Foreign Relations, April 2015, see as the Strengthening the Free Exercise of Religion, Part 2 of speech May 16, 2013. Religious freedom is not just the concern of religious persons. Non-believers also have a strong interest in religious freedom, which is necessary for peace and stability in our pluralistic world. The protection of conscience is a vital ingredient of stability because it helps people from a wide spectrum of beliefs feel assured that their deepest concern and values are respected and protected. Now, I come to because due to the short time, I come to the conclusion also, roles of civil society. In the recent past, spread of terrorism and intolerance. We have discussed this in the first day, yesterday also. In the recent past, spread of terrorism and intolerance, the world over are on the increase. One of the major causes of the two aspects is restricting the freedom of religion. The freedom of religion is being restricted not only by the religious zealots, but also at state level, by the governments of some countries, so much so that religious freedom has been restricted for some through the constitutions that we know about what is happening with the Ahmadis in Pakistan. Following are the roles which civil society can play. Number one, a political organization should be set up with the sole objective of achieving religious freedom. Maximum efforts should be made to enhance the membership of these from all sections of the society, irrespective of political value. Awareness about religious freedom should be increased such that the citizens support only those political parties which supports only freedom of religion. Efforts should be made to eliminate constitutional acts which deny religious freedom. Hate speech is the main cause of denial of religious freedom of religion. This could be through public addresses, social media, electronic media, educational curriculum, etc. Development and enforcement of laws to punish the persons, organization obstructing freedom of religion. Conduct of interfaith activities which enables the people to understand each the religious beliefs of others and respect. Before concluding, I would like to invite...
We're at 10 minutes now.
Just last.
Okay.
Before concluding, I draw the attention of this August House that the role of the society in the rural areas of Third World, especially in South Asia and Muslim countries, is non-existent. It is due to the lack of facilities like basic amenities, education, and health. The people of these areas are being exploited by the vested interests, people in the name of religion. The international organizations like UN must take steps to eradicate the menace which is threatening the world peace. Civil society in the urban area should join hands with the local NGOs to create awareness to like-minded people in the rural and ignored area. Education should be given priority. Religious freedom is one of the very basic rights of all human beings, which is quintessential for the peace and harmony among the citizens of our country and our coming generations. Civil societies are important forums which represent cross-section of the society to achieve specific goals. Achievement of religious freedom should be pursued by the civil society. However, the true potential of these organizations is yet to be realized. I believe that these organizations can play a very active and effective role towards religious and freedom. Amen. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I want to start with the verse, Bible verse, and I will request the lady from Pakistan if she can read that. Please. You want to listen it again? Yeah, please.
Matthew,
Yes.
Matthew 5, verses 11 and 12. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before me. This is the word of the Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Bob, for inviting me here. This is a great opportunity for me to be with you and from Pakistan and work for the cause, what you are doing. And this is the need of the time. I will not repeat many things which we talked yesterday, but few things which we missed from that laws, I will say, I will just tell about that. Like, we talk a lot about the government role in Pakistan. Our government have a double standard with the minorities. We have freedom of prayer, we have freedom of prayer meetings, we have freedom of evangelism, we have freedom of holding crusades, and even government give us the protection of that. But on the other hand, they have discriminatory laws in their constitution. And we talked a lot about blasphemy law, but we haven't talked about the marriage law, marriage act, especially for the Christian girls and Hindu girls. When Christian girl forcefully rape and accept Islam, and within 2 minutes they perform another wedding with a Muslim, whereas Muslim have 40 days, iddat we call it, and then they can marry them. But for the Christians, at once Christian marriage is finished. So that law, we are talking about that law also, that we should work on that law also. And we have discrimination, lot of discrimination in different organizations, different institutions. We are not getting good jobs, as we talked yesterday. 295 say blasphemy law, we lost our key leaders in Pakistan. We lost Bishop John Joseph, who sacrificed his life for the blasphemy law. He struggled 17 years to repeal that law. And when Ayub Masih got death sentence from Sahiwal Session Court, and Bishop John Joseph sacrificed his life on the same gate of the court where they announced the death sentence of Ayub Masih. And because he promised on the funeral of Manzoor Masih, who was murdered, who was killed in the court. When he was coming back, he was acquitted. And he was coming back from the court and he was killed by the Muslims because the judge set him free. He was killed. Bishop John was performing a funeral and he came down from the altar and kissed Manzoor Masih's feet and promised that after this, if somebody will hang or somebody will get death penalty, I will sacrifice my life. And in 1998, 6th of June, he went there in Sahiwal Court, Session Court, and shot himself on the gate. And then Suleiman Tasir, he was a governor of Punjab. He was also working for blasphemy. He was killed by his own security guard. Then Shabazz Bhatti, he was also working for the blasphemy and he was killed. And on the funeral of Shabazz Bhatti, I was there. And because we also struggle for this, and the people were saying, many people saying, now it's your turn. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid at all. Because I'm afraid those who can destroy my body. But I'm afraid those who can destroy my soul. That persecution, mostly persecution happened with the militants and the Islamic groups. We have freedom, like I said, we have freedom of expressions, we have freedom of prayers, we have freedom of go to church. But the militants, they attack us. They attack on the churches. There are many stories of the churches. There are many victims of the blasphemy. There are many victims of the girls who was forcefully accept Islam and all. So there are many. And there are individuals, those who are doing this, and there are groups, religion groups, those who are doing this. And we struggle for them. And we, as I said, that we know what we are facing in Pakistan, but now we have to say that what should be the solution. We have to see the solution, and I'm happy that this organization, Taiwan International Religious Freedom Forum, that is one of the hope. And I'm not saying that this is the only organization. We should all come together, like Tina said this morning, and later on Mr. Roger also, that we should have informations and reporting correctly. And I will add in that we have relationship also. We should have communication also. The communication is the key of the relationship. If we have communication with all of us, and then the things will be easy to understand. I will quote one incident that in Gujarat, there was 3 years, 4 years ago back. The whole Christian colony was burnt, and 8 people was burnt alive. And there was a girl, she was totally burnt, and she was a mother. She was holding a little baby, and she was also burnt. And that lady's eyes were open, and I was standing there, and I was watching her. And it came in my mind, what is my role? She was asking me, her open eyes were asking me, what is your role? And that's what I'm telling you. Everybody should say, what is my role? We shouldn't see the Western world, and we shouldn't see the others. My role. What is my role? If we play our role correct, I think things will be changed. And together, we can make change. We want to move faith in action. Together, we can advance religious freedom. Let's get it done. Thank you very much.
नमस्कार अभिवादन सबैलाई
Greetings to you all.
म नेपालको प्रतिनिधि
I'm representing my country, Nepal.
यो सर्वोच्च शिखर सगरमाथा भएको देश मेरो अनि बुद्ध जन्मेको देशबाट म आएको
Nepal is known as the highest top of the world and also the birthplace of Buddha.
विशेष गरी यो कार्यक्रममा मलाई बोलाएर यहाँहरुसँग चाहिँ भेटघाट गर्ने अवसर जुराइदिनु भएकोमा विशेष गरी म डाक्टर बफुलाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु
I thank you, Dr. Bob, for inviting me.
म विषयवस्तुतिर अगाडि बढ्न गइरहेको छु विशेष गरी सबैजनाले आफ्नो विषयहरू राखिसक्नु भएको छ
I come to my point here, what I want to say, and many of you have already shared your thought.
यसमा मैले भन्नुपर्दाखेरि मेरो देशमा चाहिँ विगतमा एउटा एकात्मक राज्य व्यवस्था थियो जहाँ चाहिँ राजाले राज्य चलाउँथ्यो र त्यसलाई चाहिँ एउटा हिन्दू धर्मको विष्णुको अवतारको रूपमा लिइन्थ्यो राजालाई
In many years in my country, the monarchy was ruling, and king was considered the incarnation of one god.
त्यसैले नेपाल एउटा बहुजाति बहुधार्मिक बहुसांस्कृतिक भएको मुलुकमा एउटा एकात्मक राज्य व्यवस्था जसमा पनि हिन्दू राजाको प्रतीकको रूपमा देवताको प्रतीकको रूपमा जुन राजाले राज्य सञ्चालन गरिरहेको थिए
Nepal is, though Nepal is the multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural country, but there was only one ruling power that is considered as king, that is from Hindu king.
त्यसैले गर्दाखेरि त्यहाँनेर चाहिँ विभिन्न जातिहरू विभिन्न वर्ग विभिन्न क्षेत्रमा र लैङ्गिक रूपमा पनि उत्पीडन परेका सम्पूर्ण नेपालीहरूले चाहिँ एउटा आन्दोलन र युद्ध सञ्चालन गर्यो जुन चाहिँ माओवादीको नाममा चाहिँ 2052 सालबाट चाहिँ त्यहाँ चाहिँ जनयुद्धको सुरुवात पनि भएको थियो
People were badly exploited because of that world monarchical system. So in the name of Maoism, the country started people's revolt since 1991.
अनि त्यसमा जनयुद्धको पश्चात विभिन्न राजनीतिक दलहरूको बीचमा चाहिँ 12 बुँदे समझदारी भयो जहाँ चाहिँ अरु राजनीतिक दललाई पनि त्यतिखेरको राजाले चाहिँ एक खालको चाहिँ भनौं न उनीहरुलाई चाहिँ त्यस्तो खालको एउटा वातावरण तयार गरेको थियो जसमा चाहिँ माओवादी र तत्कालीन राज्य सत्तामै रहेका राजनीतिक दलहरूको चाहिँ एउटा मिलन भयो सम्झौता भयो र 12 बुँदे समझदारी पश्चात चाहिँ 19 दिने जनआन्दोलन पनि सम्पन्न भयो
We have done several attempts, particularly in the leadership of Maoist movement. Different political parties came together and there was a political accord in 2006.
र त्यो 12 बुँदे समझदारी पश्चातको आन्दोलन जनयुद्धको जगमा जुन आन्दोलन भयो त्यो भइसके पछाडी तत्कालीन माओवादीले आफ्नो युद्धको क्रममा उठान गरिरहेको नयाँ संविधान गणतन्त्र धर्मनिरपेक्षता संघीयता र समानुपातिक समावेशीको कुरा पनि सँगसँगै अगाडि ल्याइरहेको थियो र त्यो कुरामा त्यतिखेरका राजनीतिक दलहरू पनि सहमत भइसके पछाडी नयाँ संविधान एउटा संविधान सभाको माध्यमद्वारा अहिले हामीसँग नयाँ संविधान आएको छ
In the leadership of Maoist, the political parties, those who came together to rally for secular state, the constitution by people, and republic, democratic country. So that was succeeded in unity of all parties, and we have now constitution promulgated.
यो संविधानको चाहिँ सकारात्मक कुरा हामीले मान्नुपर्छ जुन गणतन्त्र आएको छ, गणतन्त्रले चाहिँ त्यहाँनेर भएका विभिन्न जातिगत रूपमा आएका प्रतिनिधिहरूलाई पनि राष्ट्रको प्रमुख हुने अवसर प्रदान गरेको छ र त्यसैले गर्दा अहिले नेपालमा चाहिँ महिला राष्ट्रपति हुनुहुन्छ।
The Constitution guarantees the people's representative even in the state head, and also the political agreements that is include all peoples in the mainstream politics and administration.
अनि संघीयता पनि अहिले हामी कार्यान्वयनमा छौं। 7 स्टेटहरू छ नेपालमा र त्यही अनुसार चाहिँ समावेशी समानुपातिक पनि चाहिँ प्रतिनिधित्व भएको छ र त्यही अन्तर्गत म पनि एउटा समाजमा बहिष्कृत भएको दलित समुदायको तर्फबाट प्रतिनिधि बनेर आएको छु। नेपालमा दलित समुदायलाई अछुत अथवा चाहिँ उसले छुएको खानु हुँदैन, उसलाई घरमा पस्न दिनु हुँदैन भन्ने ढंगले चाहिँ हामीलाई हेर्ने गरिन्छ।
Now the Constitution guarantees different people group to be in the mainstream politics. She represents from Dalit, that is one of the marginalized people group, and also we have divided the country into this administrative system. Federal and provincial parliaments we have now, and she represents from provincial parliament.
यति हुँदा हुँदै पनि हामीले एउटा धर्मनिरपेक्षताको नारा जनयुद्धको माध्यमद्वारा लगाएका थियौं र सम्पूर्ण राजनीतिक दलले पनि त्यसलाई समर्थन गरेर संविधानमा पनि त्यसलाई हामीले लिपिबद्धता गर्यौं। तर जुन यहाँनेर भनिएको छ नेपाल राज्य, नेपाल स्वतन्त्र अविभाज्य सार्वभौम सत्ता सम्पन्न धर्मनिरपेक्ष समावेशी लोकतन्त्रात्मक समाजवाद उन्मुख संघीय गणतन्त्रात्मक राज्य हो।
The agreement through the constitution was done for secular state, which tells the state of Nepal will remain independent, sovereign, secular, inclusive, democratic, and heading towards socialism and federal republic country. But we have kind of political agreement and we distorted the definition of secularism.
तर दुःखको कुरा के छ भने स्पष्टीकरण भनेर भनिएको छ तर त्यसको तल लेखिएको छ यस धाराको प्रयोजनका लागि धर्मनिरपेक्षता भन्नाले सनातनदेखि चलिआएको धर्म संस्कृतिको संरक्षण लगायत धार्मिक संस्कृति स्वतन्त्रता सम्झनु पर्छ भनेर यसलाई चाहिँ उल्टो व्याख्या गर्ने काम गरिएको छ र एउटा यो दुःखको कुरा पनि हो र यसलाई चाहिँ संशोधन गरिनुपर्छ भनेर हामीले सदनमा आवाज पनि उठाइरहेका छौं।
Though secular state mean differently in political arena, but we have this agreement and we wrote in our constitution that for the use of this article, it says secular state means to protect and promote the religion and culture from ancient time. That means it is Hinduism obviously, and we are voicing against this to be amended.
हामी सांसदहरूको भूमिका कानुन निर्माण र संशोधनमा जति महत्त्वपूर्ण हुन्छ त्यति नै महत्त्वपूर्ण भूमिका नागरिक समाजको पनि रहने गर्दछ।
As we are parliamentarian working towards good constitution and law, but at the same time we also expecting the civil society to work together.
हुन त नेपाल एउटा चाहिँ धार्मिक सहिष्णुता भएको मुलुक पनि हो। अहिलेसम्म धार्मिक आन्दोलनहरू युद्धहरू नेपालमा भएको पनि छैन, त एउटा खुसीको कुरा पनि हो।
In general, Nepal is a religious tolerant country. Nobody has indeed fight against other religion, or there was no such violence in the name of religion.
जसरी अहिले आईपीपी फर नेपाल च्याप्टरले संसदभित्र हालै लागू गरिएको संविधान र अपराध संहितामा रहेको विभेदपूर्ण कानुनहरू संशोधन गर्नका लागि आवाज उठाउने काम गरिरहेको छ र त्यसमा हामीले पनि साथ दिइरहेका छौँ।
We are taking initiative to speak out within the Parliament that these discriminatory clauses on penal code would be amended.
म विश्वास गर्छु धर्म तथा आस्थाको स्वतन्त्रता भनेको कुनै पनि धर्म मान्ने र नमान्ने दुवै पक्षका मानिसहरूको स्वतन्त्रता हो र यो स्वतन्त्रताका लागि सरकार, संसद र नागरिक समाज एकजुट हुनुपर्छ।
I strongly believe that the freedom of religion or belief is the freedom, is the right to everybody, those who follow religion or not. For that, we need to work together. The government, the parliament, and people need to stand together.
मलाई लाग्छ नेपालमा कम्युनिस्ट शासन भए तापनि यी जति पनि धार्मिक अल्पसंख्यकमा रहेका धार्मिक समुदायहरू छन् उनीहरूलाई त्यस्तो चाहिँ पेलेर जानु हुँदैन र त्यो जाँदैन पनि भन्ने मलाई लाग्छ, किनकि नेपालमा रहेका जति पनि यो सिड्युल कास्ट, दलित समुदाय, आदिवासी जनजातिहरू विशेष गरी चाहिँ अहिले उनीहरूको आकर्षण चाहिँ यो क्रिस्चियन धर्मप्रति रहेको छ। त्यसैले गर्दा पनि उनीहरूको विरुद्धमा सरकार जान सक्दैन भन्ने मलाई लाग्छ।
Though we are under communist regime, but it is somehow modified philosophy we uphold, and we are in favor of minority groups, including Christians and other religion, and we strongly support them to observe their religion.
And if you could
तर
really
पनि अब
quickly, excuse me.
नेपाल चाहिँ चाइना र भारतको बीचमा रहेको सानो देश हो। त्यो भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ भारत र चाइनाले गर्दाखेरि अलिकति केही अप्ठ्यारो महसुस गरिरहेको भन्ने मलाई लाग्छ।
We have two big countries, China and India, and somehow our politics is influenced by them.
अन्तमा हाम्रो देश अहिले जसरी एउटा राजनीतिक परिवर्तनको दिशामा गइरहेको छ र नयाँ संविधान बनेको छ, अब हामी त्यो नयाँ संविधानको कार्यान्वयनतिर हामी अगाडि बढिरहेका छौँ र त्यही अनुसार हाम्रो नेपालको विकास पनि क्रमिक रूपमा हुँदै जान्छ भन्ने हामीलाई आशा पनि लागेको छ।
As we are in transition period, politically speaking, so I believe new thing and good thing will happen in future.
Okay, I think
पहिला हाम्रो देशमा चाहिँ कस्तो थियो भने शासन व्यवस्थाहरू 3 महिना 6 महिनामा चाहिँ परिवर्तन भइरहन्थ्यो, तर हाम्रो अहिले चाहिँ 2/3 सरकार बनेको छ। अब मलाई लाग्छ स्थायी सरकारले चाहिँ देशको विकास गर्छ भन्ने मलाई लागिरहेको छ। धन्यवाद, नमस्कार।
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
And also thank you to the translator, Mr. Kanal. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for inviting us. We are 4 representatives from Nepal. 2 are from Member of Parliament and 2 are from a non-parliamentarian. Now, I don't want to go more detail. I have 5 things to say, 5 points. One is TIRFF, then TIRFF in Nepal, freedom of religion in Nepal, and the legal provision of TIRFF in Nepal, and the role of civil society, and some recommendation. So freedom of religion and belief by definition is ensure of one's religion activity without any interference to pray, worship, and praise. Freedom of religion is very foundation to any other right because it is the right to conscience from which comes
value and morality of human life. It includes assembling together or peaceful religious activities such as worship, preaching, and prayer, speaking freely about one's religion beliefs, a voluntarily act of changing one's religion belief and affiliation. Thus, this TIRFF includes possession and distribution of religious lectures and sacred texts, raising one's children in the religious teaching and the practice of one's choice. For and fundamental rights. This right to freedom of religion and belief associates with the fundamental rights such as right to equality, right to freedom of speech and expression, right to assembly, right to movement and mobility, right to culture, and right to human dignity, right to justice, right to information, right to peaceful residence, and so on. Talking about freedom of religion in Nepal, yet most of the religious minorities are not enjoying the freedom, not because of people reacting the others, but it is in the most of cases the politically misleading movements, religious nationalism, extremism, and atrocity. When the government authority cannot be trusted, peace in the diversified community will be in danger. I just want to say a little bit about how history talks about the freedom of religion in Nepal. February 4, 1769, late King Prithviraj Shah from Gorkha conquered Kathmandu Valley. So he expelled Christians from the country. Nepal remained as closed till the dead First People's Revolt in 1951. But in the same period of history of Nepal, about 180 years, Islam grew widespread throughout the deeper hill region, and Buddhism, Kirat, and the other sect of Hinduism covered under the shadow of the state religion. As you know, Nepal, before 2006, Nepal was known as a Hindu kingdom, and more than 80%, they claimed more than 80% Hindu were staying in Nepal. It means the majority of religion was Hindu. I come from Hindu background. God chose me. I accepted Lord as a Jesus Christ 26 years before. Now, 1962, King Mahendra suspended the democracy. The Panchayati monarchy constitution banned any political party, and any act of religion minority was banned, not only the political activity, but also region of the minorities and anti-conversion provision in the Muluki Ain, which is Nepal Code or General Codes. Hundreds of court cases on conversion attempts. Dozens of minorities leaders served in different jails until 1991. 94 Pastor Sukham and Gopal Buddha Magar were arrested and killed, though they were not associated with any criminal activity but witnessing to be Christian. Only Hindu constitution monarchs were guaranteed in the Constitution Act. Limited provision on freedom of religion under the fundamental right were established. Yet, Christian church, Buddhist monastery, Muslim madrasa were not recognized as a religious entity. The interim constitution 2006 accepted, as our MP just mentioned over here, that the interim constitution 2006 accepted secularism, yet situation did not change. The new constitution has both accepted and denied. The country would remain as a secular state. The clarification of the term secular state rather requires the state to protect and promotes the religion from ancient age, which is called in Sanskrit Sanatana. So in the Constitution, Article 4.1 and Article 26.3 gives an opening for the proposed criminal code and anti-conversion with freedom of religion is denied. Any offensive act to Sanatana, it means traditional religion, which is Hindu, Sanatana, can be criminalized. Penal Code Section 9, clauses 155 to 159 imposes restriction of freedom of religion. No conversion allowed, attempt and allurement, preaching with the intention to proselytization is criminal offense. Punishment for such offense can be up to 5 years in prison and deportation if the person is a foreigner. Recently, from 2015, after the new constitution, there was more than 25, it is recorded, but there is some incident which is not recorded. Lot of persecution is going on in terms of freedom of religion. Recent case like Charikot, which is one of the district of Nepal, Chinimaya, her name is Chinimaya, and the recent, like 2 months before, the Dilliram Paudel, who is a General Secretary of Nepal Christian Society, was arrested. And there is a lot of bomb blast in the church, and murderers and violent activity against minority religious communities are taken into the serious action by the state. The government and the other Hindu fundamentalists, they are only thinking that they are the only one in the power, and they don't take care of minorities group in Nepal. Now, civil society, what is our role in our country or in the world? In the growing scenario of present persecution against in the country, the civil society leaders come together. We form a movement called Religious Liberty Forum Nepal in 2013, consists of a group of like-minded for activists. Dharmik Chautari Nepal in 2014, ongoing interfaith dialogue in common issues. In growing scenario, again, International Panel of Parliamentarians for Freedom of Religion or Belief, a parliamentary effort to begun to promote and protect TIRFF in 2014. Different NGOs, Christian faith-based NGOs, community-based NGOs, and civil societies are rallying together, coordination and collaboration in unity. Now what can we do? Now we need, first of all, the activists such as us should have a global joint effort to promote, protect, and perfect for freedom of religion, 3P, as a global peace project. Advocacy must be to the powerful by influencing them to feel and be human. Advocacy must be with the vulnerable by educating, empowering, and equipping them to take their stand. Educating, empowering, and equipping. And by bringing effort together to remove and amend the discriminatory laws and practices. Thank you for listening this presentation.
And now we'll invite Ms. Yanaji. And also thank you to Henry Song for providing translation.
안녕하세요. I love you.
Hello.
저는 독실한 크리스천이며 하나님이 주신 자유를 찾아 북한을 탈출한 탈북 작가 지연아입니다.
My name is Hyunaji, and I escaped North Korea to seek my God-given freedom, and now I've become a devout Christian living in South Korea.
먼저 종교 자유를 진흥하는 시민사회 역할 행사에 초대해 주신 바쁜 목사님을 비롯한 모든 관계자분들께 감사 인사를 드립니다.
First of all, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Pastor Bafu, China Aid, and all the co-hosts and sponsors of this event, and I'm very honored to be here today.
18년 연속 세계 기독교 박해 1위 국가로 자리매김한 북한에서 자유와 인권은 저와 북한 주민들에게 생소한 단어였고 한 번도 사용한 적이 없는 어울리지 않는 단어였습니다.
In North Korea, a country ranked number 1 for 18 years as the worst persecutor of Christians, the very idea of freedom and human rights is foreign, and I never heard of or used those words while in North Korea, and they do not fit the North Korean society.
북한에서의 신앙이란 김씨 일가에게 충성하는 것입니다.
In North Korea, faith means being loyal to the Kim family dictatorship.
저는 북한에서 성경책을 접했습니다.
I first came across the Bible in North Korea.
엄마가 식량난에 중국으로 갔다 가지고 온 자그마한 성경책을 저는 매일 읽었습니다.
My mother went to China to find food during the difficult period in North Korea and brought back a small Bible which I read every day.
어느 날 보이부에 다녀가라는 소식을 듣고 찾아간 저는 원인 모를 고문을 받으면서 한국 국정원과 내통하냐는 질문을 받았습니다.
One day I was called to the local Ministry of State Security, or MSS, in Korean it's called 보위부 office, and there I was tortured and beaten for reasons unknown. I was then asked, did I come into contact with any South Korean intelligence agents?
모른다고 하였더니 제가 보던 성경책을 책상 위에 올려다 놓으면서 여기에 대해 이야기하라고 했습니다.
I said I didn't know what you were talking about, and that's when the agent placed my Bible on his desk.
순간 심장이 멎는 것 같았습니다.
He told me to explain what this is all about, and that moment I felt my heart stop.
북한에서는 김일성을 비롯하여 김씨 일가 외에 다른 신을 믿으면 정치범 수용소에 가거나 사형이 되기 때문입니다.
Because in North Korea, if you believe in any other god or gods besides Kim Il-sung and the Kim family dictators, you would be sent to a political prison camp or be executed.
저는 정신을 차려야 했고 길가에서 주웠는데 바치려 했지만 시간이 없어서 바치지 못했다고 거짓말을 해야 했습니다. 그래야만이 살아남기 때문입니다.
I knew I had to be quick thinking, so I said I found it while I was walking around, and I wanted to turn this in, but I didn't have time, so I lied. I had to lie because that was the only way I could survive and get out of that situation.
보이지더원은 사실 여부를 거듭 확인하며 이런 일이 반복될 때에는 용서하지 않을 거라고 엄포를 놓고서야 저를 풀어주었습니다.
The security agent said, I will check on this, and repeatedly told me if I did this again, that he will not forgive me, and he put the fear in me, and then released me.
그 성경책은 저와 제일 친하던 친구가 가져다 준 것으로 나중에 알았습니다.
I found out later that my best friend actually turned in the Bible and reported me to the authorities.
서로가 서로를 감시하는 감시 체제로 커다란 감옥이 되어버린 북한에서의 신앙은 꿈이었습니다.
So having faith in North Korea, where everyone monitored each other and surveilled each other, having a faith was an impossible thing to do.
저는 총 3번의 강제 북송과 4번의 탈북을 하였습니다.
I escaped 4 times from North Korea, and I was repatriated by the Chinese authorities 3 times.
이 과정에 재판 없이 증산 11호 교화소에서 8개월 동안 강제 노동을 하게 되었고 많은 사람들이 고된 노동과 설사와 배고픔으로 죽는 것을 보았습니다.
During this process of escape and repatriation, I was sent to prison camp number 11, labor reform prison camp, and there I was forced to do slave-like labor, and I saw so many people die from simple illnesses, diarrhea, and starvation, and overwork.
산자가 죽은 자를 위해 할 수 있는 것은 채 감지 못하고 죽은 그들의 눈을 감겨주는 일이었습니다.
The only thing the living could do for the dead in the prison camp was close the eyes of the people who passed away, who died in the prison camp.
지금 이 사진들은 중국에서 강제 북송 당하는 탈북자들의 모습입니다.
The pictures you see are pictures of North Korean defectors being forcibly repatriated from China to North Korea.
다행히 2000년 2월 16일 김정일 생일을 맞으며 감옥에서 사면을 받아 기적적으로 살아남아 다시 탈북했고 또 중국에서 인신매매 당했으며 임신 3개월 만에 북송되었습니다.
Fortunately, I was released on Kim Jong-il's birthday on February 16, 2000 from the prison camp number 11, and I miraculously survived and I escaped North Korea again. However, I was arrested by the Chinese authorities and then repatriated back to North Korea again. At this point, I was 3 months pregnant.
북한 정권은 혼혈을 인정하지 않습니다.
The North Korean regime does not recognize mixed-race children.
그래서 임신되어 북송당한 여성들을 강제로 건설 현장에서 시멘트 마대를 등에 지고 뛰게 하거나 두 손을 머리에 올려 앉았다 일어났다 100번 시키거나 6개월 이상 된 임산부들에게는 배 주사를 태아의 머리에 놓아 낙태시킵니다.
So North Korean security agents, they force these women who come back pregnant with Chinese babies who are often sold into trafficking situations to have forced abortion by carrying heavy cement blocks in detention facilities or to do repeated sitting down and standing up motion. Or in the case of 6 months or longer pregnant North Korean defector women, they would put needles and do medically induced abortion.
저녁이 되면 도집결소 안에는 숨진 태아들을 출산하는 여성들의 비명소리로 가득 찼습니다.
Every night I heard the screams of the women going through forced abortions in the prison camp.
임신 3개월 임산부엔 저 역시 피할 수가 없었습니다.
I too could not avoid this fate as I was 3 months pregnant with the half Chinese, half North Korean baby in my womb.
제가 누운 곳은 침대가 아닌 책상이었고 사나운 의사가 집게를 들고 저의 첫 아이의 다리를 집어내 꺼내고 팔을 집어 꺼냈습니다.
Where they placed me was not a hospital bed, but was a desk, and a fearful-looking doctor forcibly pried over my legs and inserted forceps and started killing my baby in my womb by cutting off and shredding my baby.
저는 마취 없이 강제 낙태 수술을 당하고 있었고 육체적 고통으로 힘들었습니다.
This was all done without any anesthesia used on me, and the physical pain was so hard to endure.
집게에 붙은 살들이 잘 떨어지지 않으니 스댄 그릇에 툭툭 터는 소리가 저희 귀에 맴돌았습니다.
I could hear the doctor being frustrated with the fact that the shredded parts of my baby were not falling off the forceps. So he would bang the forceps on the dish to get rid of the pieces of my baby's body, and that sound still rings in my ear to this day.
하나님 보고 계십니까? 도대체 왜 이렇게 잔인한 선택을 하시는지요? 우리의 기도가 부족했던 건가요? 라고 원망의 기도를 하는 저에게 하나님은 아프냐? 많이 아프냐? 나도 내 아들을 그렇게 잃었단다.
I cried out to God, God, do you see this? How come I have to take this painful, violent choice? Were my prayers not enough for you? And I heard the voice of God say back to me, does this hurt? Does this hurt a lot? Then now you understand what I went through when I sent my son to the world.
저는 이때 하나님의 마음을 알게 되었고 북한의 기독교 박해와 인권 박해를 온 세상에 전하고 또 북한에는 예수와의 사랑을 전할 것을 다짐하며 하나님의 은혜로 마지막 탈북을 하게 되었습니다.
This is when I knew the heart of God, and I determined that I would survive, and I would tell the world about the Christian persecution of the North Korean regime and the human rights violations going on in the country, and to spread the good news of Jesus in North Korea, and I escaped North Korea again.
한국에 온 저는 굴로 북한을 알리는 작가가 되었고 북한에는 대북 풍선으로 복음을 전하는 선교사가 되었습니다.
Once I arrived in South Korea after my escape, I became an activist, and I am involved with work sending leaflets and Christian materials into North Korea via balloons and working as an activist.
또한 전 세계에 북한을 알려 북한의 인권에 관심을 가져줄 것을 호소하고 있습니다.
And I also am taking this message throughout the world to tell the people all around the world about the human rights situation in North Korea.
인권이란 인간이 하나님이 주신 이 신앙의 자유를 누릴 수 있는 권리를 말합니다.
My message is that human rights is the right of the people to enjoy the freedom of God-given faith.
저는 오늘 중국 정부와 북한의 폭정 정권의 기독교 박해를 멈추기 위한 여러 가지 방안들을 제시하고자 합니다.
So today I want to share 3 suggestions or 3 things that I want to share about how we can pressure the Chinese government and more importantly the North Korean government to stop the persecution of Christians.
첫째, 북한은 신앙의 자유를 박탈당하여 예수님을 믿는다고 하면 바로 처형하는 기독교 박해 국가입니다.
First of all, North Korea is a country that kills people who believe in Jesus and persecutes them.
1998년 10월 미국 의회를 통과한 미국의 국제종교자유법에는 종교의 자유가 특별히 우려되는 국가로 특정 국가가 지정되면 상황이 개선될 때까지 광범위한 외교 및 경제적 제재를 가해야 된다고 명시되어 있습니다. 북한의 기독교 박해에 대해 국제사회가 대북 제재를 더욱 가해야 하는 것이 합당한 조치라고 생각합니다.
So the U.S. Congress passed the International Religious Freedom Act in 1998, and this is where one of the articles, one of the parts of the act says that country of particular concern when it comes to religious persecution must face a punishment diplomatically and through economic sanctions so that they will change their ways. And North Korea fits this perfectly.
둘째, 탈북하는 북한 여성들이 중국에서 인신매매 당하고 임신된 채 강제 북송되는 부분입니다. 중국에는 현재 25만 명의 탈북 여성들이 있고 절반 이상이 중국에서 하나님을 영접하였습니다.
Second, in China, North Korean women who are repatriated to North Korea who are pregnant are forced to go abortion, as I shared, and there are currently 250,000 estimated North Korean refugee women living in China, and a lot of them have come into contact with Christianity and are attending churches.
탈북자들은 강제 북송되기 전에 조사가 진행됩니다. 조사 결과 서류는 북송될 때 북한 보위부에 함께 넘겨지고 중국에서 교회를 다녔던 사람들은 북송된 후 처형되거나 완전 통치 구역인 정치범 수용소에 가게 됩니다. 중국은 유엔 상임이사국임에도 불구하고 유엔 난민 조약을 어기고 탈북자들을 난민으로 인정하지 않고 있으며 인권 박해하는 곳으로 다시 보내고 있습니다. 중국 정부에 대한 국제사회의 목소리가 더해지길 원합니다.
North Korean defected women are investigated by the Chinese authorities before being handed over to North Korean authorities. And as a result of the investigation, depending on how much exposure they've had to people from South Korea or Americans in China, they're either sent to a total control zone political prison camp or sent to a prison or executed. And China, while still being a member of the Security Council of the UN and also being a party to the UN Convention to the status of refugees, they violate the rights of the North Korean defectors and do not recognize them as refugees. So the voice against the China calling out their actions must grow louder. 네, 마무리하세요. Yeah.
네, 지금 보여드릴 동영상은 북한에서 이제 고문하는 모습입니다. 직접
I will end my speech with the clip smuggled out of North Korea showing a North Korean security agent beating and torturing a repatriated North Korean defector.
셋째, 탈북 신앙인들이 임신되어 북송되었을 경우 무조건 강제 낙태하는 북한 정권입니다. 이는 혼혈을 인정하지 않고 단일 민족을 주장하는 북한 폭정 정권의 고집이기 때문입니다. 이로 인해 수만 명의 아이들이 강제로 목숨을 잃고 있습니다. 이는 명백히 인종 청소입니다. 여기에 중국의 강제 북송이 없고 난민으로 받았을 경우 탈북 여성들의 강제 낙태는 없고 인종 청소 역시 없을 것입니다.
And so in closing, I just want to say that in the case of North Korean defectors who have become Christians and who are also pregnant, as I shared earlier in my testimony, they are forced to undergo abortion. And this is what I would deem ethnic genocide. North Korea, what it carries out against its own people. And here, China also plays a role into this. If China recognized them as refugees and not send them back to North Korea, none of this would happen.
보호 책임 원칙에는 통치자가 자국민을 인권받게 할 경우 국제사회가 그 나라 국민을 보호해야 한다고 명시되어 있습니다. 이 보호 책임 원칙을 바탕으로 북한을 더욱 압박하고 비핵화 전에 북한의 인권박해 문제 제기를 지속화하여야 합니다. 또한 국제사회가 중국 정부가 탈북자들을 난민으로 인정할 수 있도록 목소리를 내며 지금과 같은 행사를 많이 진행하여야 할 것입니다.
In closing, the principle of responsibility to protect, or R2P, says that countries should protect and help those who are facing persecution and who are facing this sort of danger. And so I believe, and I really want to exhort all the people here that the international community should pressure the Chinese government to stop the forced repatriation of North Korean defectors.
지금 보는 사진은 북한에서 기독교인의 가족을 생체 실험을 하는 모습인데요. 그 생체 실험에서 가스를 집어 넣었을 때 얼마 동안 사람이 살 수 있는지 그걸 지금 실험하고 있는데 아빠는 아들에게, 엄마는 딸에게 마지막 공기를 넣어주는 모습입니다.
And I just want to share one last picture. This is from a testimony of defector. There have been reports of live experiments on defectors and on prisoners, and this is an image of a family, a father giving his last breath to his son, and the mother doing the same to his daughter while they were being tested like this by the North Korean regime. 마무리하세요, 선생님. Yeah.
홀로코스트는 끝난 것이 아닙니다. 21세기 홀로코스트는 북한판 홀로코스트가 계속 진행이 되고 있습니다. 홀로코스트는 사진들을 그래도 찍어놨지만 북한은 찍을 사진도 없습니다. 국제사회가 함께 바로에게 내 백성을 보내라라고 당당히 이야기했던 모세와 같이 북한의 기독교인들에 대한 박해를 멈추라는 메시지를 보내는 등 대북 제재를 더욱 강화하는 데 동참하며 어둠의 땅 북한이 동방의 예루살렘이 되길 간절히 바랍니다. Let my people go.
So the Holocaust has not ended when it comes to North Korea. We have pictures from the Holocaust, but for North Korea, we only have drawings. So as Moses said to the Pharaoh, we cry out to the North Korean government, let my people go. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think we've heard from everyone a range of experiences of persecution from all across Asia. Especially Ms. Chi's account is quite moving, I'm sure, for all of us. I was really struck by Johnson Michael's question of what is our role? And so if Bob, if it's okay, maybe take 15 minutes for Q&A. I know that we're supposed to move toward lunch. But I'd really love to be able to get some reflections and questions from people around. Is it okay, Bob? 10 minutes? Or we have to end? We have to end. $10 minutes? Okay. All right. Okay. And please state your affiliation and a question. No long speeches.
Definitely, there won't be speeches, but we have to say whatever we have heard. We have to react, or we have to ask, or we have to comment on that. So, Dr. Hassan.
Primary purpose of this is definitely questions.
Yes.
Thanks.
So sometimes question comes in the comments. Dr. Hassan from International Parliament for Safety and Peace. It was basically concerned with the previous presentation that we were talking about the terrorism and cells. So, talking about our delegate from Malaysia. So, that's as a pyramidal power chart that from the top, there are the leaders, then the actors, then the supporters. And cells, what he talked about the cells, there are 3 to 10 persons who are secluded. They are working as a lone wolf just because they do not want their security to be compromised. So they act at their own. Once they have got their ideology, they go and react. As blasphemy, especially in Pakistan, is concerned, I have some figures. And these figures come from the National Commission for Justice and Peace And this foundation was formed by Pakistan Catholic Bishops Conference.
Question? Do you have a question?
Yes.
Okay, could you please move toward the question?
So
Thank you.
this is a clarification that we always say that the minorities are in problem or they are under blasphemous law. But I want to tell you that there are 1,540 cases of blasphemy from 1987 to 2018, and amongst those 776 Muslims, 505 Ahmadis, 229 Christians, 30 Hindus. So the figure shows clearly that that is not the case of a religious enforcement or they are targeting any religion. This is only the mindset, the culture mindset that we have to understand. Either it is on the eastern side or it is on the western side. We put on the black goggles, everything looks black. So we have to open our minds, we have to enrich our experience, cultural experience, religious experience. Just one thing I would like to end.
What's your question, sir?
Yes.
Please ask the question now, or else we need to move on to somebody else. Thank you.
Just I will quote one verse, chapter 7, verse 56. And do not make mischief in the land after its reformation, and pray to him in awe and expectation. The blessing of God is at hand of those who do good. So this is the basic thing. Do good and everything will be fine. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question?
Is there somebody up there? No? Oh.
I just want to not clarify, but I just want to make a comment on that the blasphemy law was made by the Pakistani government to control especially the minorities, not only Christians, but Ahmadis. Later on, that law was misused against them also. That's why they are paying the price. Thank you.
I think we should go through the Constitution of Pakistan, Second Amendment 1974, Ordinance 20 by Ziaul Haq. I think we should read that. What is the anti-Ahmadiyya blasphemy laws? 295, 298 till death penalty. So we should understand what the blasphemy law in Pakistan is.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, sir.
喂，我想提出一个问题，就是针对北韩的问题来说啊，这位女士，你了解不了解，在北韩内部，你们希望外部能够做些什么？外部还能够更多的做些什么？那么对于外部来讲，我们能做的难道只是这些吗？只是容忍这些反人类的政权一直存在吗？大家对这个问题怎么看？好，谢谢。
Quickly translate the questions. Question is to Ms. Ji that this evil regime, right? Facing this evil regime, what is the outcry from the defectors, the North Korean defectors in China, and what else could we do from the international community to really deal with this evil regime?
네, 여보세요. 네. 어, 북한에는 하나의 감옥이에요. 그래서 감옥 안에 있는 사람은 어떻게 할 수가 없어요. 그래서 감옥 밖에 있는 사람들이 목소리를 내는데요. 여기에 침묵하지 말고 같이 언론은 언론대로 목소리를 내주고요. 또 직접 북한에서 북한 내부에서 저처럼 겪었던 사람들이 경험 있는 사람들이 국제사회에 나와서 목소리를 낼 수 있는 기회를 주시고 또 여러분들이 같이 여기에 동참을 해주셔서 유엔을 비롯한 국제사회가 북한을 대북 제재하는 데 동참해 주시는 것이 북한 정권을 무너뜨리는데 도움이 된다고 생각을 합니다.
So North Korea is one giant prison, and as people in prison, inside the prison, can't help themselves, it's the people outside the prison that can free the people inside the prison. So this is where, for example, members of the media can play their part in terms of reporting the truth about North Korea, for example. So in effect, there should be no silence when it comes to the human rights violations happening in North Korea. And I believe there should be more opportunities for defector voices to be heard throughout the world. Events like TIRFF at this conference here, and also through the UN and other international stage, people should call out to the governments of the world and the international community to strengthen and to continue the economic sanctions against North Korean government, because this is the key point that will strangle and ultimately kill the North Korean dictatorship, the economic sanctions that will strangle the regime.
Add just really quickly, I've done a decent amount of work writing on solutions to address challenges in North Korea, and I think one of the things that has really been left out is, as we've approached North Korea in negotiations, human rights issues haven't really been a part of the discussion. And I think that if there's a way to integrate them into the discussion, some of the recommendations I have made have been requesting access for agencies like the the World Food Program, the International Committee on the Red Cross, or UN agencies to be able to provide humanitarian assistance to those in the political prison camps. But I also would echo Ms. G's comments that definitely making greater use of the targeted financial measures that we have in order to sanction individuals, not just for the nuclear program, but also for the human rights challenges, is quite important and could be really helpful. Happy to discuss further too afterwards. Yeah. Yes.
It's Julie Zhu, pastor from Central Taiwan. I have a response for Ms. G. As a female, as a mother, as a female pastor in Taiwan, in Free Taiwan, your story, you are so brave. I would like you to know that women and mothers all over the world would like to be in solidarity with you. Your voice, your story, so sad, but it's very, very important. We together will continue this challenge. We can do not so much, but I would like you to know we will support you in every way we can. Keep on the journey. You won't be alone. Women all over the world will be with you.
Thank you very much.
I think that's a great note to end on.